Hey guys, my name is Paul and this is what I've been working on for the last 4 years. Probably like a lot of you, I grew up playing video games, and ever since my young days, I've always wanted to create one. So about 4 years ago, I started this project. And in the early days, there was a lot of struggle, and there still is, but there's always this cycle of failure and success repeating itself over and over. And this cycle has become an obsession, and now I call that obsession Void Destroyer. So in the early days, as I'm adding in features, I started working on the 2D map. And throughout this process, I always thought to myself, what could I improve? What did other space sims lack? How could I make this game something specifically for myself, something that I've always wanted to play? And as I'm working on this 2D map, I thought to myself, hey, even if this is the greatest 2D map there is, it will still be 2D. Why not make it 3D? And then I realized that I've always wanted to not only be the pilot in a space sim, but also the commander. I wanted to issue orders. I wanted to manage my forces. I wanted to manage the economy. And as I realized this, I decided to add in real-time strategy elements. And from that point on, Void Destroyer became a hybrid game. Other elements that make Void Destroyer unique and things I've always wanted to add to a space sim, one of them is for the player to be able to pilot many types of different ships, from small fighters to large cruisers. Another is the ability to change from one ship to another very quickly. The idea is that the player is physically located in the command ship, and this ship gives the player the ability to remotely pilot ships that the player owns. This means that usually when a ship that the player is in is destroyed, the game doesn't end. The player doesn't have to reload. It just simply means that the player switches to another ship or back to the command ship. This means that the player isn't as vulnerable in game anymore. This means that there can be many deaths and destroyed ships, but the game doesn't end. This means that there can be a lot more ships in combat, and this means that the AI can be a lot more aggressive, that there can be this back and forth, this interesting variety of combat, something that a lot of space sims lack because the player is so vulnerable being stuck in one ship, which either has to be much more powerful than the other ships, or there has to be a lot less ships attacking the player. Void Destroyer and the ability to change ships and remotely pilot them is the answer, or my answer, to that issue. When you think about your ideal game, you're probably thinking great sound, great graphics, it's going to be awesome. And that's what I also thought, and that's what I also wanted. However, I quickly realized that my art skills weren't going to cut it, that I was going to have to hire artists, that I was going to have to pay for art. And it turned out I was able to budget for this because of the long timeline of the project and because of the initial narrow focus of purchasing art assets. For example, initially it was 3D models. Plus, I was able to find generous artists working under these conditions. Several months ago, I started having to tell my artists to slow down the creation of art assets and in some cases to even stop. The reason for this is that I'm unable to budget for them anymore due to the state of the game. The state of the game is late alpha, meaning that pretty much every single aspect of the game needs some kind of a new art asset, or in some cases an overhaul. And this is the reason for this Kickstarter campaign, to raise funds for art assets, to overhaul the 2D GUI, to overhaul the 2D HUD, which is actually my own programmer art right now, to get new 3D models, for example, a mining ship for the player faction, and to replace some placeholder art, as well as music tracks and sound effects especially for tactical mode, which is almost nearly silent right now, and that's a big part of the game. It's actually half the game, and that is the reason for this Kickstarter campaign. The plan post Kickstarter, about a month after, is to release a beta version to the backers at that level. Then with their feedback, continue working on the game, and about 6 months after that, hopefully sooner, to release the release version to those backers at that level as well as everybody else. And then use the funds from release to fund the further aspects of the game. For example, some of these things that I've mentioned as stretch goals. For example, adding first-person shooter elements, making the game a real-time strategy, a space sim, and a first-person shooter. And then continue working on the game, adding in features, striving towards the goal of making this the greatest space sim ever made. And if that's what I end up doing for the rest of my life, that would not be too bad. I would be very happy. To summarize, Void Destroyer is a unique combination of space sim and real-time strategy, letting you be both the pilot and the commander, letting you play the game how you want to play the game. As I'm developing the game, I always thought to myself that my biggest risk would be not to take enough risks. And as an indie studio, I'm able to create this unique combination, whereas other mainstream studios might not be able to. And I hope that this risk pays off for you, the player, in terms of interesting gameplay. So I hope that you tell your friends about the project. I hope that you consider being a backer. I hope that you download the demo, that you play the demo, that you enjoy the demo. I hope that we get a chance to create something unique together. And thank you for watching.